Okay, we are back live here on our big broadcast. iHeart Radio, AM, FM, 24/7. Of course, the Odyssey app, which is always entertaining to me, and we have got the fantastic Frank Vernuccio kicking off our broadcast day with us here, and IQ Al Rizzoli, Dan Perkins. So, Frank, I was gonna start with the Epstein stuff, with the fact that apparently people are keeping documents in storage units. All That's an episode of Storage Wars I'd like to watch. But let's start with the State of the Union. Uh, what do you think Trump's going to do tonight besides verbally eviscerate the Supreme Court?
Well, he's going to talk about what the press doesn't want to talk about, which is there are a number of key good economic indicators.
Yep.
There are also a number of key good things going on throughout the Western Hemisphere, particularly um, in the fighting of the drug trade. And on that note, if I might divert for just a moment,
Yes.
um, one story that the news is covering totally inadequately is what's going on in Mexico. A
Yes.
lot of this is being portrayed as a law enforcement thing fighting off a drug cartel or cartels, which of course is not inaccurate, except that it is more appropriate to discuss what is going on in Mexico as a civil war. In Mexico, there are two authority figures. One, of course, is the Mexican government, but they are frankly coming in a second, or have been coming in second in the past, to the cartels. Finally, with President Scheinbaum working with American intelligence sources, they are treating the cartels as they should be treated, as a rebel force attempting to really run the country outside the bounds of normal government. Now, this is a long time coming, and we have to thank Donald Trump for putting his foot down on all this. And clearly, if you look at the after action reports, the fighting between the cartels and the Mexican government does not resemble law enforcement. It resembles a civil war. There are weapons of war that have downed helicopters. There are weapons in the hands of the cartels that are every bit as good as those in the hands of the Mexican military. And finally, this is being taken on. I suspect that at some point, the president, in his attempt to to make President Scheinbaum take this issue more seriously, talked about a number of things which probably have not been discussed in the press, including the threat to prohibit remittances coming from Mexican citizens living in the United States back down to family members in Mexico. That would, of course, cause a major economic crisis in Mexico. And it's about time that a president put his foot down, and it's about time the Mexican government got real about the fact that they're not in control of their own country.
Dan, I know you've got some questions and some answers and some
and
thoughts.
some and some
Just by the
thoughts.
way, I see them wheels turning, baby.
You see smoke coming out of the ears, did you?
No, no, you're everybody is spot on agreement on this, but I know you've got some thoughts here, my friend.
Well, I want to somewhat agree with what Frank is saying. But I think it's a larger picture. Not that the picture that Frank pointed or painted for us wasn't important. It clearly was. But what Frank said, which I thought extremely important, is that, and he said it, I think I counted two, maybe three times. So when somebody says that in a short period of time and repeats himself, that means it's pretty important to him. And that was the president putting his foot down, long been needed. That's been the problem with the presidents that we've had going back quite a ways, maybe all the way to Ronald Reagan, is that they forgot that they had a foot and what to do with it. And so many of the things that Donald Trump is trying to unwind and get rid of are because previous presidents never put their foot down, whether it was Mexico or whether it was Iran or anybody else. We just let it run roughshod over us. So I think it's an important point, and I think Frank made a great point with that. I do believe that I think the characterization of what's going on in Mexico as a civil war reminded me from my history perspective of Pancho Villa, who was trying to overthrow the Mexican government as a Mexican. But the point is, we've got a president who's not afraid to stomp something out and to say to people, stop it, or there'll be consequences. And I think that, I don't know whether IQ is going to win his bet or not, but it looks like he might.
Oh yeah, we have to bring. You have to explain your bet to Vernuccio because he was gone.
I let Mr. IQ Alvarez speak to Jim, and he was talking about how convinced he was that Donald Trump was going to attack Iran by the end of the month. And I just sat back and listened to the conversation, and Jim took a pass. He wasn't interested in that. And I said, I'm willing to take that bet. I'll take the $100 bet that Donald Trump doesn't pull the trigger by the end of the month. And we got 4 days left. We're going to see what happens. But getting back to the serious matter, I do think that the speech, he already warned us yesterday, it's going to be long. It's going to be at least an hour, maybe more. You got the hockey team now that's going to be there in the gallery, and Charlie Kirk's wife's going to be in the gallery, and who knows who else knows. I would say that I'd like to ask Frank a particular question about the speech and what led up to the speech and what happened with his cabinet. Most people don't know that many members of his cabinet was in Italy at the various venues watching the Americans perform. And Frank, I wanted to ask you, the left seems to be really, really angry at Donald Trump for allowing Cash to go into the locker room with the team. They seem to have forgot that a previous president let his vice president go into the locker room and encouraged a call from the president to the hockey players. So it's turnabout, but it's not fair play. It's turnabout and it's bad. What did you think about the enthusiasm of the players, their patriotic stance, their support of Donald Trump? Did that bother you?
Oh, no, just the opposite. I thought it was, in light of some of the other inappropriate comments that some Olympians have made in the past, which are downplayed America, I thought it was a really breath of fresh air. I was thrilled with it. And what this all indicates to me, when you have the left making a big thing about an administration official visiting the victorious hockey team, it tells you they're desperate to find an issue. The issue isn't, they can't really fault the economy very much. They can't fault his foreign policy very much. They're desperate for an issue. They're going to try to manufacture anything they can. And if it's not on a substantive issue, it'll be on some nonsense, like the FBI guy going into the locker room. What nonsense?
Yeah. But I want to ask you one other thing. Did you happen to see Gavin Newsom's presentation in front of the black community last weekend?
You know, I can't stand the guy, to be honest with you, but even I had a cringe at how bad it was. Talk about a not ready for prime time player. The man clearly puts his foot in his mouth almost every chance he gets. It's an indication of how bad the Democrat bench really is. Gavin Newsom shoots himself in the foot constantly. We saw AOC make a disastrous comment when she was interviewed at the Munich Security Conference. Kamala Harris is a wreck. Pete Buttigieg, when he was transportation secretary, let those poor folks who had that disaster up in Palatine go unappreciated and unaddressed. What bench do the Democrats have? Now, you can talk about people like Shapiro. You can talk about Rahm Emanuel possibly, but I don't see them appealing to the money makers, the money donors in the Democratic Party. The donors to the Democratic Party are mostly hard left, and they're not going to like a Rahm Emanuel, I think, or a Josh Shapiro, not to mention the anti-Semitism within the Democratic Party. So I think they have a real problem. The people that they have who could conceivably post a credible challenge to a strong Republican candidate are not the people that the candidate, the party's money people actually like.
Do you think, Frank, that the constant rhetoric from from the Democratic Party that they're going to win the primary, the midterms, is smoke?
No, I think that it's based somewhat on history. There's no doubt about that at all. Um, the party out of power in the White House does very well in the midterms. So that's not smoke at all. I also think that the power of the media, which is going to do everything possible to get the Democrats to win, is a very strong factor as well. So those are two key issues that point to a possible Democratic gain, particularly in the House. Now, the reason I say particularly in the House, Senate races are decided a lot on national policy. So that's going to favor the Republicans. I think the Republicans are going to do very well in the Senate races. They'll hold or even gain. Unfortunately, the House races are based on a lot of other things: party identification, ethnic identification. Those are factors that'll help the Democrats.
You think I was looking at what happened with Gavin Newsom, and then followed up by the new communist mayor of New York, and his requirement of five forms of identification to get a job of shoveling snow, but they don't need an ID to vote, but they got to get 5 different IDs in order to be able to get the job to shovel snow after the blizzard in New York City. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I think they reduced that to two forms of identification, but it's a parallel to what happened when Congress voted on the SAVE Act, which is to get in and cast your vote in the Congress, you have to have an identification card.
Right.
When you want to get a job shoveling snow in New York City, you have to have 2 forms of ID to do that. When you want to get into most buildings, want to get into the Democrat National Convention, you have to show ID. The hypocrisy of being against ID to vote, I think, is going to be a great strong suit for the Republicans, and one which, by the way, cuts across party lines, ethnic lines, even age lines.
Yeah. Let's take another issue, if I could. We closed down the government last fall for 45, 46 days over one issue. Now, I'm not being facetious, Frank. Do you remember what it was?
You know, it doesn't come to mind at the moment. That's how
Yeah.
unessential it was.
It was about the government paying the premium for Obamacare. That's what the Democrats put the stake in the ground.
Right.
But it didn't pass, and they had to capitulate to open the government. What happened to the issue in the Democratic Party? It disappeared.
Disappeared. Yeah. Yeah.
Now we've got the Democrats who started off with Mondavi talking about it's too expensive to live in America. And we've got a president tonight who's going to talk about it's getting cheaper to live in America. And you're going to put more money in your wallet, putting more money in your wallet. So what issue are the Democrats going to run to get control of the House, number one? And number two, if the Democrats get control of the House, and I agree with you, it's unlikely they'll get control of the Senate, the president's agenda may be slowed down, but the Democratic agenda is going nowhere, because I don't believe that the win, whatever it is, if it happens in the House, will give the Democrats enough people to get the 2/3 majority to override a presidential veto. And I would expect Donald Trump, if he loses the House, to use the veto unmercifully, and nothing's going to go anywhere. And maybe it's not a bad idea that nothing goes anywhere, because if we stop stuff, maybe we won't spend as much money.
Yeah, the other thing, of course, is that if the Democrats win the House, it almost guarantees a victory for the Republicans in 2028, because they won't be able to blame everything on the GOP.
Right, right. No, I agree. I think it's amazing to watch this thing unfold, because Gavin Newsom, who was supposedly one of the front runners, I think it burned up his campaign last weekend. AOC, another supposedly front runner, destroyed herself in Munich. And Gretchen Wilmer said nothing, which was probably okay, except that means he doesn't have an opinion or doesn't know what to say. So I agree with you. There's nobody jumping out at us saying, and my point of this, Frank, is if you don't have a party leader, how do you motivate the rank and file to vote for the people going into the House?
Speaking of civil wars, we talked about the Mexican Civil War. What about the civil war within the Democratic Party? I fail to believe that the majority of rank and file Democrats, union guys, things like that, go along with this whole Democratic Socialist of America platform. I think that you're going to see maybe that in a couple of big blue cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Boston, that sort of thing. But for the most part, the Democrat rank and file simply isn't going to go along with the DSA platform. So that's going to be a real problem for the Democrats. They are in a state of civil war. As I said before, their big money donors are the hard left who push this stuff. I don't see the Democrat rank and file as opposed to, the super liberals in those big cities going along with it. And that's not enough to get them a victory.
So if you look at what McDonough said, forget about the ID situation. When he was talking a week ago about what he has to do to deal with the budget, that he wants to put unlike Gavin Newsom, who has a piece on the ballot in November to tax billionaires on their assets. Mandami wants to tax millionaires on their assets, number one. And number two, he's now saying that instead of cutting the budget, we're going to have to get more tax revenue, and he wants to increase property taxes, quote as a last resort, to quote him, 9.5%.
On the middle class, by the way.
Right. But my point is, Frank, we've already seen a number of billionaires, significant billionaires, who have left California and went to Texas or Florida with a $1 million tax on assets in New York and a 9.5% increase in real estate taxes. They're going to see the swinging door staying open the whole time, because I think they're going to see a great move of people out of the city.
What's remarkable is that the hard left is under the misimpression that you can put a Berlin Wall around New York City, Los Angeles, or California as a whole. They don't quite get the concept that you can leave these states and move someplace more tax friendly. Now, what some states are doing, like California, are talking about an extra jurisdiction tax, so that somehow if you leave the state, they can somehow have an enormous tax on your assets before you leave, or even after you leave, they can put almost an ex post facto tax on you. Now, again, that's the sort of the hard left version of a Berlin Wall, one way or the other. Right. Those concepts, by the way, I think will be struck down. They will go to the Supreme Court and get struck down. But they're going to try it anyway. They are fighting a losing battle. Their states are going to continue to dwindle. They're going to lose seats in Congress. They're going to lose constituents by the score, and they're going to lose their tax base. So who pays for all those programs once your tax base has left?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think the answer to that question is that Mandavi is going to look to Hochul, the governor, to throw some money at him in order to try and save as much of the city as she can. Because
but here's the problem with that. Right now, New York State is a one-party state. The Democrats control everything: the governor's mansion, the state legislature, both upper and lower houses. Except if Governor Hochul decides to do that, if she goes along with Mandami, then it won't be in this election because she's sneaky and she'll do it after the election is over. But in the next election, you might see a substantial change in the makeup of the New York State government from Democrat to Republican in both the Assembly and in the state Senate. Now, of course, we also have a governor's race coming up. If people believe strongly enough that Hochul is going to do what Mandami wants, then you just might see a very competitive governor's race in the state of New York.
Well, speaking of the governor's race, there was a Gallup poll last week I saw of California voters. And California for our listeners that don't know, California is in their election process is a what they call a jungle primary. Anybody who wants to run, regardless of party affiliation, they all run at the same time, and the top two vote getters then have the runoff in the general election. The polling data is suggesting that Democrats believe they could have two Republicans running for governor because of the disenfranchisement of the Democratic rank and file based on the legislature and Governor Gavin.
I suspect there's one fly in the ointment, though. I don't know California politics as well as California electoral law as well as I know New York, but there probably is a way to get someone on the ballot or even a write-in campaign. And because of California's ballot harvesting system, you might still run into problems, even with two Republicans on the established and on the top of the line. Once you establish ballot harvesting in California, it's almost impossible for a non-Democrat to win.
Well, we'll see.
I certainly hope you're right.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting. California is one of those areas which is almost ripe for a split. Like you have in Michigan, you have the Upper Peninsula and the rest of the state. Right. In New York State, you have the lower counties, Westchester, Rockland, New York, and those in Long Island, as opposed to the rest of the state. California, Northern California, and Southern California are very different for the most part.
Right.
And you could see a real secession type movement. Of course, the Senate would have to approve that sort of thing. I don't know if that's going to happen. But certainly it's an interesting prospect.
Right. I agree.
So IQ, what kind of questions here based upon the things you heard for Frank?
Good God, they went through 200 items. The only thing I can tell you is this, which the news media is not mentioning. The IRGC has been establishing assets among the cartels in Mexico for the last 15 years. And nobody is mentioning it. Many of the cartels are completely and utterly linked to the IRGC. And many Christians have been converted to Shia Islam in Mexico. Again, nobody is mentioning that.
Those are brilliant points, IQ. I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, I'm not privy to the internal discussions directly within the White House, but I suspect that the timing of this might not be completely unrelated to the points you just brought up.
I agree. I think that, again, we're trying to figure out which way is up, and for the longest time we never bothered to figure out which way was up. Well, wonderful article in our local paper this past week about what $38 trillion of debt and the interest on that $38 trillion is doing to the budget in our country. It's the number one item in the budget before anything else. And that's the interest that we're paying on it. And more people are beginning to say that that the devil's going to have to be paid somehow. And been talking about some of the ways the devil, and that would be entitlements. I think the number, and I could be wrong, Frank, I think they said 40-some% of the American people pay no taxes at all.
Yeah.
And so the 1% are paying like 25 or 30% of all the tax revenue that's generated. And the one thing we didn't talk about, and we've got just a couple of minutes, I see by the clock. What's your take on, one, the tariffs, and two, Federal Express?
I just had a long conversation with a retired judge who did an extensive analysis of the tariff decision. It was, of course, a limited decision. It was a decision on the administration using the IPEEA statute. However, there are other statutes that can easily be used for the same goal.
Right.
So I think there could be two things that occurred. Number one, the president come out with a revised or new executive order which simply quotes the other statutes. The other point is that even under the IPEA statute, I see no path to giving all that money back. There's a third point as well, which is that the tariffs were used to cut deals with other countries. Now, those
Right.
deals probably have a survivability clause, which says that if the tariffs, somehow got overturned, that those deals still exist.
Mhm.
So there's not going to be, I think, as dramatic effect of the ruling as you might think. If the Republicans hold on to the House long enough, or if they do it before the elections, they can simply approve a change to a different statute, or the president can cite different statutes and do the exact same thing. I don't see much real damage from this.
Yeah,
Correct me.
I'm sorry, he clearly did that on Friday morning, is that as soon as they announced their decision, he already had another tariff that started out at 10% in the morning, and by the afternoon, he'd raised it to 15%. But it's a
Right.
general tariff, everybody's paying the same amount. But what about the FedEx suit? Did you see that?
I'm sorry?
Did you see the FedEx suit, Federal Express?
No, I
There's
didn't see the suit yet. I saw it, but I haven't read the decision, so I can't
Yeah,
really.
Federal Express, the freight carrier, is suing the Trump
Right.
administration for a refund. However, I haven't been successful yet, but I'm continuing to look. If Federal Express raised the prices to their customers in relation to the tariff, they would have no standing because they didn't gain anything or lose anything. It was a pass-through.
Correct.
So I think
Correct.
that I was surprised that Mr. Smith did that. And why, I don't understand why he did it, but
Yeah, I haven't read the brief yet, so I can't really speak to it authoritatively.
I understand. But I agree with you that it's going to be difficult to figure out. And the idea that corporations should be getting the quote refunds if there are going to be anything, I don't think so. I think the refunds ought to go to the people who ultimately paid for it, which was the consumers who saw their prices go up by some percentage of the tariffs. And if it's $187 billion, as some people think it is, even if you had half of that, Frank, that would pour back into the pockets of the American consumer, what a benefit.
Be careful, Democrats, that you might get what you pay for, what you want. I would see if, in fact, the court demands that. How about all those nice checks that go out? Say maybe the last Tuesday in October, signed by Donald J. Trump to all the constituents across the country, who are
Right.
involved. That's going to make them pretty happy on the first Tuesday in November. So the Democrats better hope that's not what occurs. That's not going to inure to their benefit.
Yep, I agree.
So, before we let you go, Frank, give us a preview of your radio and TV program this weekend.
Well, thanks. We're going to be talking to Jared Knott, former combat infantry officer, author of a couple of great books on all this. And he's talking about Iran and what the possibilities are there. And we're going to be talking to Judge John Wilson, retired. He's going to be talking about the tariff decision.
Fantastic. Well, Frank, before we let you go, how do people get in touch with you online?
Go to usagovpolicy.com.
Fantastic. So, Frank, we will talk to you next week, my friend.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
That is the amazing Frank Vernuccio. So, as we continue on here, Dan, I wanna start with you. What do you think Trump needs to say or is gonna potentially say this evening?
I think the message, the underlying message that's got to come out of Mr. Trump's brain is it's good to be an American. It's a good place to live. It's good people. We got problems. We're working on them. We're putting people to work. We're making the economy grow. It's going to be a positive message. And I don't know where he's going to introduce the hockey players, but he's going to use those hockey players to reinforce America is good, America is great, and America is coming back. And we're in control. We got the best economy, but we also got the best hockey players in the world. That's what I expect he's going to do. I think he's going to use them.
Oh, I would almost bet that he uses them, because the State of the Union is always such a I don't know if you want to call it a show, but it's always interesting because, various presidents in the past have used various things, and
Sure.
it is just what it is, I guess. IQ, what do you think he should do besides come out and say all Muslims need to be dealt with?
No, he won't say that. But I mean, he doesn't have really. What I'm surprised that Dan is saying he should be proud of to be. He's always been proud and an American. He always put this message: America first, America first, America first. Rubio does the same thing. Hexes does the same thing. All of them in the cabinet exactly the same thing. Any American who does not feel proud should either commit suicide or leave the country. Literally. You have a choice.
Throw themselves in front of a bus. Just
Yeah, exactly. You don't want it? Leave. You don't want it? Commit suicide. But don't talk. Do something. The ones who are going to disrupt the union, the speech will be the
that
Democrats.
always is going to be
The Democrats, inside and outside the Congress. They will do the same. They're a piece of garbage.
There are 30 Democrats, at least 30 Democrats, who have said that they are not going to go to the State of Union address.
Well, good. Good if they're not going.
Wait, let me finish the rest.
Okay, finish.
Let me finish the rest of the story. There was one female Democrat who thinks that's a mistake. And she said it this way: I'm elected by the people to go to the people's house and conduct the people's business.
Yep.
And when the President of the United States speaks about the State of the Union, I believe I have a moral obligation to my people to sit into that big capital and listen to what he has to say, because I am the representative of them. And if I'm not there, I'm not representing my constituents.
Yeah, but she's one. Thank you very much. One. Out of what, 200? It's a joke. They're criminal. As you said, they have nothing to talk about. They have no position. They support everything which is anti-American. Even when the Americans win, they hate it. For them to hate what America does perfectly is a sign of treason. I know you think I'm extremist. I'm not an extremist. Treason is justifiable by death. Anybody who commits treason should be executed. You don't like it? That's your problem, not mine. Look, the greatest traitor was Obama. The second greatest traitor was Biden. The third greatest traitor, Mayorkas. And all of them got away with it. All of them got away with it. Treason of the number one. What do you think?
IQ,
Yes.
tell us about what's going on in Iran and how good is my bet?
Okay. What everybody, so-called great generals in America, were talking on the interviews, the Gerald Ford will go through the Suez Canal to the Indian Ocean. I said, no, they'll go to Israel. I was right, they were wrong. Why to Israel? Because now they have a pincer movement. What I mean by pincer is the Iranians will have to direct their attention both to the south, which is the Indian Ocean, and to the northwest, which is the Mediterranean. So they have to split literally their attention and missiles to two different directions. Had the Gerald Ford gone where the Indian Ocean is, they would have had only one point, which is the Indian Ocean. Now they have split. It's a pincer movement. In any battle, the one who creates the pincer movement wins the battle. And as I told you, if and when they start, which God willing will be Saturday, within 24 hours, I'm just predicting another one. Within 24 hours, there will be nothing left of the IRGC. The first 24 hours. It's not
So
going to be a week long.
You're saying that whoever is going to attack, whether it's Israel or the United States or both in combination, they're going to destroy that army.
They will destroy 2,000 to 3,000 objects. Yes, within 24 hours. Yes, they will. People don't see. You see, you have thousands of bombs and missiles ready, not hundreds, thousands. Each submarine has got Tomahawk
Right.
cruise missiles, 154 each. 3 submarines, you've got about 450. I'm talking only submarines. What about the destroyers? What about the aircraft carriers? 1,000 aircraft. By the way, I'm talking about not 1,000 only, everything aircraft. Israel alone can field 400 to 500 aircraft, destructive aircraft, not bombers, fighters, and others like that. America has at least, between the two battle groups, another 300 to 400. We talk about immense power. And the first thing which will be done will to dazzle and destroy the enemy radar system, not with missiles first, but with electromagnetic pulse, like they did when in Venezuela. Why were many of the soldiers in Venezuela were saying, we don't know what happened to us. We were not capable of fighting. We were not able to stand. They were targeted.
So, do you expect if you're going to get rid of that many of those insurgents, are you expecting a significant amount of civilian casualties?
No, there's no reason to go for civilian casualties. I'm talking about assets, military assets. By the way, I wrote an article which I sent it to you. I haven't sent it to you because it hasn't been published. The IRGC now are embedding military assets in stadiums, in residential areas, in complexes which are civilian, and they're putting tanks and everything else on trains between civilian trains. They are doing what Muslims always do. They use their own people as human shields. Why? Simple, it's propaganda. You attack them, civilians are killed, they show you dead civilians, and you have the media, you have the corrupt and disastrous media in the West who will support them. We say, look what we are doing. We're killing civilians. We're killing children. America did not lose the war in Vietnam because the American soldiers were not good. America lost the war in Vietnam because it was betrayed. The American soldiers were betrayed. By whom? By your news media. The communists controlled news media. And they will do the same thing if a single ship sinks in this battle. And this is exactly what the Ayatollahs want to do. If they sink one single ship, they will create havoc in America, public relations havoc in America.
Mm-hmm.
One ship.
Jim, have you seen the picture of the Gerald Ford?
No.
It is absolutely massive. It looks like it goes on forever. So it's the biggest aircraft carrier in the world. It's just amazing. And they've got a runway. They could put anything on that runway on that ship. But it's just very sleek, very modern, and wow. And that's in place. So
And Jiggy, it's in Haifa. It's in Haifa in Israel. Did you know that, Jiggy?
No.
I did not know that.
It's in Haifa harbor in Israel. By the way, on Ben Gurion Airport, there are tons of aircraft, fuel carriers. fuel carrier aircraft on Ben Gurion Airport.
So what's IQ? What's going to cause this thing to implode? What's going to cause all of that armament you talked about to be used? What's going to happen?
Nothing. There will be an order by Trump, attack, and it will be in coordination with the Israelis. Everybody is coiled for this war. America will use every single weapon it has ever produced. They will use every ammunition they have ever invented. This is the best place to test all your armaments, free of charge. And on whom? On the worst people on the planet who deserve it. That's it. Really, it's going to be an incredible symphony orchestra of death.
And who's going to succeed the Ayatollah?
Pahlavi, the prince. Why are you surprised? I don't understand.
Because he says he
Everyone,
doesn't want. I've seen him on television saying he doesn't want to be the leader.
wait a minute. All he said, I will hold you together until you have elections. What do you want from him? Everybody wants him. Everybody demonstrating, even the students now. Students are demonstrating and calling for the Shah to career. They know there is nobody else who will keep Iran together. Without the Shah, Iran will be fragmented into Azeris, Baluchis, Arabs, Armenians, Kurds, and everybody else. Only the Shah will keep it together. And he said, I don't want to be the Shah. I will come, you create what do you call it? A parliament, elect your people, and I'm gone. That's it. So it's not as if there's going to be chaos, as if it's going to be empty. No, it's not going to be empty. There is a replacement, and he is the one to do it. I'm very positive about it. So we'll see. By the way, I'll be coming to America to celebrate the 250th anniversary.
Oh, you are?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I already booked the flight.
Wow.
Are you going? You talking about the 4th of July?
I'll be in Nashville, Tennessee.
You'll be in Nashville, Tennessee?
Yeah.
I may have to go to Nashville.
Yeah, you give a chance.
We may have to meet up in Nashville.
Yeah.
We'll be celebrating. No, honestly, I'll be celebrating the 250th anniversary. I might even be able to give a lecture.
Why did you pick Nashville?
If I give a lecture, I'll tell you where it is and you come.
Why did you pick Nashville?
Because I'm going with America Out Loud.
They're going to have a...
They're having a huge do.
Okay. 4th of July with IQ. Wow. We have to find some really nice places to eat. I've been to Nashville several times and Southern fried chicken and barbecue. I don't know whether you like those or not.
I love barbecues, so it's all right.
Oh, you do like barbecue? Okay.
I love barbecues. Yes, I love barbecues.
Okay.
Yeah.
There'll be plenty of places to eat there.
I definitely we're going to meet. One way or another, we've got to meet.
Yeah, and you got to go to the Grand Ole Opry.
Sorry?
You have to go to the Grand Ole Opry.
Okay, if you tell me where it is, I'll go.
It's in Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. I've been there before.
It'll be the first time I'm coming to America and staying more than 3 weeks.
Are you going to be other places other than Nashville, or just spend your whole
through the 4th?
No, I'll be a guest in there. I'll pay for my own trip and everything, but I'll be giving a lecture.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to give a lecture on Islam, obviously.
He is part of a huge lineup. It is going to be, let me see here. It is going to be July 2nd through the 4th.
Correct. Correct, yeah.
Dr. Paul Alexander, Dr. Randall Block,
No, but 20 of them.
Peter McCullough's going to be there. Malcolm Out Loud, of course. Oh yeah, yeah. I may have to. Yeah, I may have to go to that.
Is there a hotel there, Jim?
I'm going to send you this link, Dan, so you can.
Okay.
But yeah, I may end up. I may end up going to Nashville. That would be fun. So IQ is going to be given a speech at this thing.
I hope so. Yeah, they are organizing it at the moment.
So how do you?
How in the world are you going to do that and not?
I was going to say, how are you going to pull that off? You're going to be behind a curtain or what?
How do you mean? Sorry, because I've been with America Out Loud for the last 10 years.
Yeah, but I'm assuming that they're gonna have people are gonna have phones and video.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Hey, listen. If your soldiers are willing to go to a fight and against the Iranians, why shouldn't I put my life in danger? I have no problem with it. Besides, the Muslims will have to kill me to shut me up. Well, they'll do me a favor. They'll do me a favor, I promise you. No, because I'll be challenging those bastards in public. Nobody has ever done what I'm going to do. Nobody has done it before me, ever.
Yeah.
Believe me, nobody has done it before me.
And what are you going to do?
Wait and see. That's the whole
Buy
point.
your ticket.
Wait and see. Yeah, it's going to be fireworks. I mean, real fireworks. They won't be
Wow.
able to get away with it anymore. That's it.
Wow. That's a heck of a deal, my friend. It's gonna be a heck of a deal. So Dan, what do you make of this Mexico cartel thing?
I think Frank is right. That we have had a situation for way too long in our country where our presidents never put their foot down, and they always seem to want to back away or not rock the boat. And I think that's part of the problems why we have so many problems today, is that we've failed in our leadership by and large. And the Democrats have had control of the White House for a long period of time, and as a result, they have changed things that Mr. Trump is trying to unwind, and is fighting the courts, and he's fighting the Congress, trying to get things done. And he's got this midterm election that he's concerned about, and he's got a lot on his plate as far as conflicts and wars that he's dealing with. Mexico has been controlled by the drug cartels and the smugglers and the sex traffickers for a long, long, long time. And it's gotten worse. It's gotten more dangerous. And I think that the government, perhaps at the prodding of Donald Trump, as Frank was intimating, is trying to fight with them. But I think that the surprise, as I read accounts of what was going on, the surprise of the Mexican government is how well armed, and perhaps better armed than some of the units in the army that's trying to deal with them from Mexico.
Because I told you, the IRGC is supplying them. There's nothing difficult about it. They pay the money, the IRGC supply them with the latest technologies. And
Yeah,
they
but
are in your backyard. They are literally in your backyard.
Right, but I respectfully disagree a little bit with you, because the knowledge of the presence of them at the border has not been widely circulated at all.
That's not my problem. That's your bloody problem. Not your problem, your personally. I mean, America's problem. I have known about this for 10 years. I have known about it for 10 years. Why? From Iranians who are telling me. That's it. The Ayatollah, I told you, they are converting Christians in Latin America to Shia Islam. And this has been going on for 10 years in your background. But you're telling me nobody knows? No, they know. But nobody wants to take action. That's why.
So,
Nobody wants to mention it.
do you believe that the Mexicans that have been converted to Islam have been radicalized?
This word you should not use, please. I've been teaching you for 10 years, 14 years. There is no such thing as a radical Muslim. Islam is radical. The
No,
minute they become,
I said, do you think that the Muslims who have been getting control of the Mexican people in various areas, have they radicalized them
the
successfully?
minute they converted to Islam, they are radical. It's automatic. It's automatic. The minute somebody becomes a Muslim, he becomes ISIS. He becomes a jihadi. And in fact, the new convert, to prove how good he or she is, are even worse than the one who converted them. This happens all the time. All the time. The new convert becomes more extreme than the one who converted him. Because he wants to prove that he is not a Christian anymore. He's a Muslim, a true Muslim. Yeah.
Do you have a sense over the 10 years how big an issue that is? How many people have been converted?
Yeah, 20, 30,000.
20 to 30,000.
Yeah, it's not a joke. It's a lot of people. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you've got 40, 50 million people. But 20, 30,000 jihadis is a hell of a lot of people. They're terrorists, all of them.
And do they align with the narcotics people, the drug dealers?
100%.
Okay.
Because their enemy is America. How do you undermine America? Drugs. Obviously. Drugs and prostitution. That's it. That's it. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's simple.
But their problem is, at least I think their problem is, the problem is now that with the constraints on the border, their drug traffic has been really cut back dramatically, and their human resource traffic has been cut back.
True. But nonetheless, the cartels are extremely well armed and they control the whole nation. They control the whole nation. I mean, for them to take over a city, what's left?
So do you think that Mr. Trump will send American troops across the Mexican border to help the Mexican government to deal with this?
If they request, they should. It's for your own security. It's not an invasion. It's for your own security. It's for the security of the United States of America. If you have to send troops, send troops. You've got to eradicate the enemy. If you can do it by air, beautiful. But if you have to have it by air and by land, fine, do it. But it's got to be done.
I want to ask, if I might, Jim, I want to change the subject a little bit, back to IQ. We saw last week, believe it or not, we saw the former Prince Andrew being escorted to jail and out of jail in handcuffs because of his association that has been further documented with Epstein. And we've also seen some other people in the British government who were now part of that disclosure were also left. And we had more people in the United States. What's interesting about the people in the United States that have resigned their positions is they typically tend to be on the left, not conservatives. I mean, the publisher of the Washington Post basically resigned because we got somebody coming on there, Jim.
We have our guest has popped in. He got, I don't know what happened, but he must have got the wrong Zoom link.
Yeah.
And we have got Patrick Dorinson with us today. Now, Patrick, do you have a little bit of time to hang around and do an extra 15 or so minutes with us? I don't know if IQ and Dan can
I'm
stay,
ready. I'm ready. I have no
but
problem.
I can stand you as long as you can stand me.
Okay, that's a good one.
I love
That's
it.
a good one. I like that.
So Dan, finish your point, and then we'll go to Patrick.
I forgot what I was. That mustache threw me off.
That, I would think that tends to do that to people. I'll tell you, I'm getting ready to get rid of all this facial hair that I have on my face. But I'll tell you, after I see Patrick and the way he's got that whole thing put together, I might keep it. Who knows?
There you go.
But
There you go.
we have got our guest with us today, the Common Sense Cowboy's Guide to Life. Stories from the old guy at the end of the bar. Patrick Dorinson is with us today. Him and his co-author have done some incredible things here. So, Patrick, first of all, tell me and Dan and IQ about your incredible book here, my friend.
Well, it's called, as you said in the title, the Common Sense Cowboy's Guide to Life. And part of it is that old guy at the end of the bar. And that goes to my youth. I'm 73, going on 74, and just a few years shy of stepping on that final banana peel. But when I was younger, I used to hang out in probably too many saloons. And I always used to gravitate towards those old guys, those quiet guys who are at the end of the bar. And, they didn't shout, they didn't, tell you how to live, or they didn't yell at the TV. If you ever approached them, they'd kind of give you some advice, and it was always combined with stories. And I've always been a storyteller. So this book is kind of like what I've learned in almost 74 years and how I think it could help younger people, help anybody really, as they're, trying to figure out what to do in this crazy world about their life. I talk about, different value systems, and there's only one real value system, and how we've tended to drift away from the things that made this country great, and also the things that help raise, good kids into being good adults. And I think we have to gain some of that back, because if we don't, it's just going to get worse. One of the problems I see with young folks today is they don't have a code. They have no standards, individual standards of what they stand for and what they won't tolerate and what they will tolerate. And if you don't have an inner code, if you don't have a code of personal conduct, you just let anything happen.
Yep.
That was Jim, Patrick. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
I completely agree, Patrick. You have laid this out just expertly, my friend. Let's go to Dan. Dan, you have any questions here for Patrick and his
Sure. Patrick, I agree with your premise, but who's going to lead the children to the promised land?
Well, the people that should be leading to the children to the promised land are their parents. I'm a little bit skeptical of how over the last, I don't know how many years, decades, whenever we vote for leaders in this country, particularly presidents, we look for that man on the white horse who's going to, rescue us from all the bad things that are happening. And that's putting a lot of stock in one person. To me, everything begins at the family unit. And that means, showing up to school board meetings. And that means that demanding that the education system works for you as parents. And if it doesn't, homeschool your kids and take them out of those rotten public schools. And also to teach them values. You always hear politicians say, oh, that goes against our values. And the reporters never ask that very, important follow-up question. Okay, so what are your values? And if you really asked them, they couldn't tell you. They have no values. It's just a nice phrase that everybody's gotten used to. And also, in my belief, the farther this country's drifted away from God, the farther we've gotten into the arms of evil people. and we think they're going to fix things by just voting for them. And that's not going to do it. America has to be rebuilt from the hardworking people and not from the politicians who kind of put their fingers to the wind and tell us what they think at that moment.
We have, Patrick, we have a situation that developed in the last couple of weeks in the state of Texas. The state legislature passed a bill that allows school choice. And the first day that parents could enter their child into this choice program was 42,000 families registered. As of last Friday, 115,000 families have registered. And the Houston School District already announced that they're going to have to close 11 school buildings because they don't have any kids to put in the buildings. And that means
yeah,
teachers. And so parents, I look at this situation, Patrick, and I take it back to Merrick Garland, the former Attorney General for Joe Biden, when the parents in Fairfax, Virginia, went to the school board meetings and protested the use of critical race theory in the classroom. And he decided that they were domestic terrorists. And he sent the FBI to investigate what was going on. That was the turning point when I think when we went through the pandemic and parents were able to see what was going on in the classroom, that coupled with parents being angry at what was going on in the classroom, we started a movement of parents wanting to get more control of the education of their children. And I think that the expansion of transgenderism and these other liberal things that the teachers continued to do even after the pandemic pissed off a lot of parents. And a lot of parents are taking charge. And now you have Arizona, you have Texas, Florida, all which have programs in their education sector that allow the parents to make a choice of where they want their children educated. And whether it's a public school, a charter school, private school, or home, they get the ability to decide what is the best issue for them. John Kennedy, in his new book, How to Test for Stupid and Why the Politicians Never Take the Test, he talks about what's happening in education and that we're ruining the lives of children. We ruined the lives of a lot of children as a result of the pandemic. Test scores have not recovered from where they were prior to the pandemic. They're still low. And I really question, Patrick, whether or not parents today have the will to want to do something about it. Some of them do. They're protesting and getting some things changed. But are the vast majority of parents, do they see the problem and are they willing to do anything about it, Patrick?
I think they are. And it depends on where they live. If they live in a blue state, I hate to say it, but they're stuck. And just from the politics of it, there's no way the teachers union that have a stranglehold on those states are going to give up their life of preaching communism. But I do think parents do. And the very fact that all those signups in Houston, the very fact that it's a slow process. To me, it's like there's always Lexington and Concord moments. But, if we look at our own history in the Revolution, there was a lot of dark days until the victory was finally won in 1783. 1775 to 1783 is quite a long time. So you have to get started and you got to, keep at it. And I think more parents are going to do that. I truly believe that there's a renaissance going on in this country, a quiet renaissance of people are fed up with all of the nonsense that's been going on. And the pandemic exposed not just the education system to parents, it exposed the whole rotten system that's been running the country. And part of it is because we as Americans tend to believe that we'll elect somebody to high office, and then we'll kind of, here we go. So you guys go do what you're supposed to do. Well, you can't trust them to actually do the right thing. It's just not possible. And, I wrote a little thing about, the State of the Union, and I wrote it like this: America today reminds me of a car careening down a windy road, and in the front seat are the Republicans and the Democrats, the major political parties. And one fellow's grabbing that wheel and he's trying to pull it to the left, and the other fellow's grabbing it and he's trying to pull it to the right. And before you know it, that car ends up in the ditch. And then they turn around to us, the American people who've been bouncing around in the back seat, and they say, hey, get out and get this car out of the ditch. And then they say, and oh, by the way, you're going to pay for any damage that we caused. And that's kind of what I see both political parties in the party level. I'm not talking about the guy who goes out and, canvasses and stuff. I'm talking about the leaders. There's no difference between them. They can argue all they want. They can holler at each other. They can act like there's no difference. But aside from the extremes of both sides, most of the people who run these parties are just, they're just elitist, and they don't want the gravy train to stop. So once again, we've got to take charge of the situation and not just vote and then say it's taken care of. You got to hold their feet to the fire. And if you don't give them, get them reelected because you think, well, I'm going to reelect this guy because the other guy's a skunk. Well, as far as I'm concerned, they're all skunks.
And they smell.
Very badly.
So, are you in Texas?
Yeah.
No, I'm in southern Utah.
Southern Utah.
So,
You heard the story about AOC. She was asked recently if she was pleased with her speech in Germany, and I don't think I want to do that one. I'll let that one pass. I'll just let that one pass. Anyway, so what do you think? If I could change the subject just a little bit, since you're, what do you think about the court that just recently threw out the request of the person who shot Charlie Kirk to get rid of the prosecuting attorney because he thought there was a conflict of interest? Have you seen that?
No, I haven't, but I don't know. I guess I'm more for frontier justice sometimes. And I know we have a system where we have to give everybody a trial, and everybody gets a defense lawyer and stuff. But I remember in the Old West, you're going to get a fair trial, you're going to have a lawyer, you're going to get convicted, and then you have a nice fair execution. So maybe that's a little old-fashioned, but I think we have to start looking at things of, what's to prove? The guy did it. And all these machinations and stuff, to me, just makes more fodder for the media, and so they can drag it out and talk about Charlie Kirk's horrible assassination rather than talking about the everyday issues that affect the American people. I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned about what happens in this case. But look, none of that's going to bring Charlie back. And
No.
the second thing is we're allowing the media to dictate the narrative every day. For 3 weeks, we heard about Nancy Guthrie, right? And now it's kind of drifted off the pages. And I'll tell you why. Because Sean Hannity's up there, he's talking to Nancy Grace all the time. They ought to get married. But they're talking about, they're talking about this case as if we don't find this, the world's going to come to an end. Meanwhile, they don't talk about the things that are going on economically. They don't talk about the future. They don't talk about anything that means anything to people. They only do that come election time when they want to blame one side. Then they're all of a sudden talking about the issues that matter. For every 2 years, they don't do crap. They just keep talking about all this garbage. And to me, it makes Americans dumb. We just get mesmerized by this, news break and stuff like that. And it's ridiculous. And to me, it reminds me what General Omar Bradley once said. It's time we steer by the stars and not by the lights of every passing ship. And these news stories and news cycles are the passing ships. We should be looking to the horizon. We're coming up on 250 years as a nation. And I'll tell you, I'm a little worried if we're going to make another 250. And it even concerns me that we're going to make another two unless we, get our act together and start demanding that something be done with the things that are wrong in this country. And let me give you one example that's very important, and it seems minor. I don't know if you remember a few years ago when that bridge collapsed in downtown Minneapolis. Do you remember?
Yep.
And all people got killed. And, all the politicians go out there, we've got to do something. We've got to do something. How about being honest? Because after that happened, there was a little known story. There's a study done by a group in Washington who does infrastructure studies. And they found out that in Minnesota, there were 170 bridges, 170 that were in worse condition than that bridge and ready to fail. So how many bridges you think are ready to fail in this country? We have an infrastructure that's from the 20th century and it's falling apart. And all we're doing is putting patches on it and maybe, well, they don't even put stuff in potholes anymore. But we've got to understand our infrastructure is falling apart. And we're talking about AI. We're talking about all this great stuff we're going to do. And I'm all for doing great new things. But I'm also about fix what needs fixing.
Yep.
You better start looking at the water systems more importantly in this country. You better start looking at the bridges. We know what the roads are in bad shape, but it's once again, the stuff that's real, the politician doesn't dare tell the people the truth because one, they'll take them out and throw a rope around a tree or around a lamppost. And they don't have the guts to stand in front of us and say,
yes,
we neglected it. It's our fault. Now we got to fix it. Instead, they just lie like, I'm telling you something. If lying was an art form, we'd have a Congress full of artists.
Right. I mentioned last week to Jim with great surprise at his reaction about the grandmother and the mother being in the press now 3 weeks, and they've upped the ante today. $1 million for anybody who can help her figure out what happened to her mother, and a $500,000 contribution to a children's charity. And I really think it's just you're right. I think that the news media doesn't want to tell anything else but this story, and so they're crowding out everything else while this story's going on.
Yep.
And I don't know how long. I said to Jim last week, I've had enough of it. I mean, I'm sorry that she's gone. I don't know where she is, but I don't need the FBI and thousands of police officers and marshals and FBI agents looking for this woman. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's a gross deployment of resources that should be used in other ways, both money and people, to do other things that are more important. And I don't know how long they're going to continue to try and do this, but they upped the stakes today with the $1 million. It's all over the news again. They're doing it. And
yep.
And I wonder if we're ever going to find the answer to where she is and how she got there. I don't know.
Well, I was thinking about I saw a tweet over the weekend, and I just this is just how this all just seems to go. This guy Paul Gold Eagle, which that's a terribly perfect professional wrestling name if he ever wanted a career. But or a bad guy in a western, one of the two. He says it's been a hell of a few weeks. Satanic pedophile rings are real. Cannibalism is real. Kurt Cobain was murdered. Charlie Manson was part of the MK Ultra experiment that used the same techniques on his followers as were used on him. The Iraq War wasn't about weapons of mass destruction. It was a front to steal ancient artifacts. Pizzagate is real. Q was right. Epstein didn't kill himself. The 2020 election was stolen. But the mainstream media has managed to put that in a way because we got to have nonstop coverage of one woman going missing last week.
Yeah, well, you know something? Yeah. I mean, and again, nothing against Nancy Guthrie. I'm sorry that they can't find her. However, upping the ante today is merely a way to grab the headline again because they've lost the narrative. Once you lose the narrative, you better find something to get your stuff back in there. And also, it just shows you the media, you know, when they call themselves journalists, I'm sorry, but you know, I don't think any of them have ever read the Associated Press style sheet from many years ago on how to write a story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you pick up a story and the headline says something. Well, that first paragraph, and here's a lesson for all you cub reporters out there. Remember the first lesson: who, what, why, when, where. If you don't tell me that, that's in your first paragraph. In your second paragraph is your first quote, and then you start telling me the story. But these guys cannot do that because they don't understand that the great thing, and this is kind of goes to what I do in the book, you got to be able to tell a story. I used to train some people in PR, and I remember they'd come in and they'd set me down, or I'd set them down, and I'd lean back and I'd say, "Hi, nice to meet you." I said, "Tell me a story." And they'd look at me like I was from Mars. And they would say, "What do you mean?" I said, "Tell me a story. Tell me a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you're real good, for extra points and a lesson." And they looked at me, I don't know what you mean. Because they don't know how. And that's and they wanted to be PR executives someday. And I said, remember, what do you think companies hire us for? It was a firm I worked for. And the guy says, well, to get them out of trouble. I said, well, first of all, you're wrong. I said, if they come to you as a PR firm when they're in trouble, it's already too late. They haven't prepared for future potential trouble. That's one. I said, the second thing is, we're supposed to be able to tell our clients' positive story, but you have to tell their story. You have to know when you're asked a question by a reporter, you have to know how to background, how to go off the record, get information out there, spin your side of it, tell your narrative. It's not about getting people out of trouble or going to a cocktail party. What it is learning how to tell a hard story. And in the old days, when they trained young reporters, they didn't go from some journalism school to the top of MSNBC. They were told to go sit in a police station and write stories all night.
That's right.
That's the way journalism works. And to call these people journalists is an insult to every journalist who ever lived.
Patrick, you are the exact American clone of IQ. That's myself. And that's a compliment. That's the ultimate compliment, I promise you.
Well, I
You
appreciate
say
that.
it the way it is. I love it. Cowboy style, cowboy justice. No, not all the 100% lawyer here and 100 lawyers there. You convict, is guilty, execute. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and of course they get a good meal.
Not only a good meal, they make millions of dollars. They make money.
Let me tell you a story. There's a town in Northern California, east of Sacramento, about maybe 75 miles as the crow flies, and it's called Placerville today. And it used to be called, during the gold rush, Hangtown. It's where they would go to, in that area, if somebody, that was like the county seat, and that's where you got hung if you were convicted. Now, funny thing is, there's a dish in San Francisco. It's called a Hangtown fry, and it's a very delicious dish. Now, it consists of eggs and oysters. Now, there was this Chinese miner, and he got convicted. Nice trial, everything else. And they said, "What do you want for your last meal?" And he said, "I'd like eggs and oysters." Well, eggs at that time in the gold country were going about $50 a piece, and there weren't no oysters except in San Francisco. They said, "Well, gosh, it's going to take us a long time to get that." And he said, "I'll wait."
Clever bastard. Beautiful. Beautiful. This is good. Yeah.
So what do you want people to take away from your book, Patrick?
I want people to take away, one, what a great country this is in general, but also that it doesn't matter whether you're 6 or 60. You have to have a code, and children have to be taught a code. They have to have an inner core. They have to have something they judge their actions against. And I dare say, if you don't have one and you're 60, you're missing out, and you're going to make mistakes that are not uncorrectable, but you're going to wonder, did I do the right thing? And if you can look at your life when you come to the end and say, I led a good, honorable life, you'll be able to look back a second time and enjoy it. And I also want people to understand that there are certain rules that life should be lived by, and they're in my book. They're called my 12 Rules of Life. And the first one is, I won't go through all 12, but the first one is, get up every morning with a purpose. Whether you're retired or young or whatever, get up with a purpose. And if you don't have a purpose, find one. And my dad told me that. My dad lived till 99 years old. He was a medical doctor. He got his license renewed in California when he was 96. I asked him, I said, how hard was the test? And he said, well, he says, even government can't change the human body, so the test wasn't too hard. But he always told me, son, get up with a purpose. If your purpose in the morning is just to get up and maybe flick on the TV and stare at it like, a zombie, you've already wasted part of your day. So find what that purpose is, follow it, and make sure that parents out there, I want them to understand, it's up to you to raise the next generation. So do it right and make sure that they have learned that code of life so that as they have to go forward and become adults, they have a foundation to say, I'm not going to do that somebody is trying to entice me into, one, because it's wrong, and two, because it goes against my code, my inner core. Doesn't mean you're not going to, stray and make mistakes, but it means that you got that core to then go back and say, I made a mistake and I'm going to make it right.
Patrick, a simple question.
Yeah.
The banner behind you looks like 200 years old, is it?
No, it's actually made of wood.
Beautiful.
It's made by a veterans organization.
Wow. It really looks good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. No, but it looks ancient. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just hoping it's going to be around for another 250 years.
So one of the things that Dan and IQ and myself have been talking about throughout the show is what Trump should say in his State of the Union. What do you hope that he says? Obviously, we all know what he's gonna do. There's gonna be some, he's gonna take pot shots at the Supreme Court and all these things. But what are you hoping he does or says?
I am hoping that he tells the story of his America now, 2026, that he reminds us we've had difficult times as of late. And, all the other side wants to do is holler and scream and stomp their feet like spoiled children. but we have a country to continue to build. We have a legacy that we have to live up to. I think he should charge the American people with, now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country. Now is the time to put down the cudgels of political warfare and pick up a hammer or pick up a shovel. I think we should honor work. I wish he would say that, and he might. But I don't want it to be a series of attacks. Say what you've done. Say what you've done, and say what you're gonna do, and then do it. I mean, he has an opposition that is kind of hell bent on just getting rid of him. They're so angry at him. They're not thinking through what would they do if they were in power.
Yeah.
I mean, they all, and they get buzzwords. And once the media gets a buzzword, they're like a dog with a bone. Affordability. Oh, I'm sure they sat in a room and, said, that's going to be the word we're going to use all the way from now until November. Well, yeah, but, let's look at some places around the country where affordability was destroyed by the very people that are spouting the word, like California. They talk about building housing in California. One of the biggest problems in California for housing is the cost of a permit per unit. The permitting in some cities is $60,000, $70,000 just to get the permits. That's before you put a shovel in the ground or a hammer and a nail together. So, they're going to talk about that. They're going to talk about, oh, we've got to get rid of ICE. And look at these poor people they're going after. Well, I hate to tell them, but 70% of the people in this country want to get rid of the criminal aliens, period. And I hope we continue to understand we have to be strong militarily, but, if you have to use it, you've already lost the argument. And to me, gosh, I don't want to see us get involved in another war in that hornet's nest called the Middle East, because those folks are going to outlast us, and maybe if you want to help the Iranian people, help them by helping them topple that government, if that's what you really want to do. But I just, when I hear people say, like Lindsey Graham and a few others, oh, we're going to knock them over, yeah, okay, you can swagger all you want, Lindsey. You're not going to be in the front lines or the lead bomber, And it's real easy, again, and I don't, I'm more of the cowboy way. You don't go around pounding your chest and telling people what you're going to do.
You just do it.
You do it. And if you have to do that, anatomically, you're pretty small.
You are amazing, my friend. Well, as we wrap up here with everybody, let's start with IQ Alrizzoli. IQ, how do we get your books and get involved with everything you're doing online, sir?
My books are with Amazon, Lifting the Veil, The True Faces of Muhammad and Islam. And all my articles are published by America Out Loud -home. And Patrick, it was a pleasure to stay awake and listen to you.
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you too, and I hope.
Thank you. Thank you.
May God bless.
Thank you.
So Dan Perkins, what are some of your latest projects, my friend?
Well, I'm working on a book for my Irish friend, his memoirs of life starting out in abject poverty and abuse in Ireland, coming to the United States and becoming a successful businessman. It's a wonderful story, and we continue to evolve it. My latest novel is Sad Eyes. It's available on Amazon, or some of my other books are available on Amazon. My television shows can be seen on Rumble. My radio shows can be on AM/FM 24/7 and most major podcasts throughout the country. And my foundation is Songs and Stories for Soldiers, where we have a 12-year ministry of treating veterans with traumatic brain injury, PTSD, sleep deprivation, and suicide prevention, and a few other things.
Fantastic. So, Patrick, you have been phenomenal today, my friend. I really appreciate you making as much time as you have for us today. How do we get your books and get involved with everything that you're doing, my friend?
Well, boy, I'm just a small guy compared to your other two wonderful guests. So, heck, every morning I've got a manure fork, being humble before my Lord, picking up after my horse. But you can go to patrickdorinson.com, where you can order the book. I am doing some more projects that will be listed on that website very shortly. I'm working on a second book, the Common Sense Cowboy's Guide to Telling It Like It Is, and another one on politics with the same format. And we're also working on, some other issues that'll be out there very shortly. And actually this weekend on C-SPAN 2's Book TV at 10 o'clock in the morning Mountain. I always got to think Mountain time. You're going to see a interview with me that was done in Greeley, Colorado, where my mother was born. And we had a little event out there at a whiskey distillery.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Jim,
Yes.
I want you to take a good look at this man's face. Now I'm going to tell you something. If you lose the mustache, you know who he looks like?
No.
The Republican senator from Louisiana, John Kennedy. Take a look at it.
Well, I'm not getting rid of this mustache. It took too dang long to grow it.
I'm sure it did. Thank you for joining us, Patrick.
Yeah, you have been amazing, Patrick. This has been phenomenal, and I definitely congratulations on that C-SPAN gig.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool, my friend. Well, IQ, we will see you Thursday. Dan, I will talk to you next week, and Patrick, I will be in touch for sure. And that is that.